Hi, everybody. I hope you've had a wonderful week. Wonderful, wonderful week. It's a little steamy and hot outside, but I've enjoyed it. We've been on vacation this week and we decided to have a staycation. Nothing overly majorly fun. We haven't ran to the water park or anything like that. We've just been together. And I think it was well needed, at least on my part. But anyway, last week we talked about learning styles and teaching styles. And one of the things I decided to do is because I had so many questions the first week. The second week is just we're answering questions today. So if you didn't get your question in, you can drop it below and I'll come back and answer it. But that's what we're going to do today. So we talked about learning styles, which teaching styles, which are the different types of teaching styles that parents will use with homeschooling, like classical, eclectic, unschooling, um, Charlotte Mason, Montessori, Waldorf, school at home, like maybe you do like a public school at home type. Do we just usually call it public school? Public school and classical can kind of be a little bit confused, but they might be set up a little bit the same, but they're not. Classical has a three, like a loop of three different stages where you go through information, and then you go through the information, you learn the facts, then you learn. Um, I don't even know how to describe it. It's where we started. I told y'all that story. But anyway, so I had some really great, great questions, and I wanted to take some time to answer them. And I have my list because my memory is not what it was 20 years ago when I started homeschooling. I don't even know if I had a good memory then. So I told you about those are the teaching styles. So learning styles like being hands-on, or maybe you need a lecture, or maybe you're visual or auditory, or just different things. So I had some great questions. One was, how can I tell what my child's learning style is? Are there signs and behaviors that I can look for? So yes, totally. Mothers, even dads, parents are great observers. We like watch our kids like a hawk. And when you're spending, as you homeschool, when you begin to homeschool, you may feel like you don't know anything about your child, but you do. And then as you spend more time with them, you begin to learn them better. So you have to observe them. How do they play? How do they interact with their siblings or their peers? How do they interact with you? And you can begin to get clues. I had a mom on the site, and I'll put this in the link when I finish with this. But I had a mom, and I actually found some quizzes. Like if you want to do some quizzes, but trust your gut. Always trust your gut. You know your child best, and as and it's like a treasure trove. I'm like, as you spend time with them, homeschooling, and get down your path, you will begin to know them better. I have some that work very well with lecture style classes. I have others that were very visual and did video. It has done fabulous with me at prep. That was where we started with that. Then others, always offer multiple ways, but I'll come back to that because that goes on with another question. Y'all know I love questions. So, what's the difference? Well, somebody asked me, what's the difference between a learning style and a teaching style, and how do I know if they're mismatched? Teaching style is the way you teach. Learning style is how your kid learns. That's kind of, I'm like, I guess my first video didn't explain it well enough, and I'm sorry if I didn't explain it well enough. It's been a while since I've done a boot camp, and I'm doing this one a little bit different. If you want one of my more traditional boot camps, I've got like three or four on the website, and you can go through there. They're there. That's a noisy truck. That was a very noisy truck. But a mismatch can happen. I'm like, when your method, like it's lecture heavy, and you have a child that works best with hands on, then there's going to be a mismatch. And you're going to figure that out very, very quickly because you're going to be frustrated. Your child's going to be frustrated. You're going to be frustrated. They're going to zone out. You're going to wish you could zone out, and you're the parent. You can't. You have to figure this out because you're the teacher and you can do it. Let's see. Can a child's learning style change over time, or is it fixed? And that's a good question. That was actually part of another question. It was just two. I just kind of moved them. Um, Kids can show strong preferences, but as they grow, things can change. Their taste can change. I'm like, you can have a little girl who's into brat dolls one week and Legos, then a couple of months later, they do change. This is one of the reasons why I say offer the same information multiple ways. Um, in the teaching world, they call it universal design is the name of it, and that is basically very much it's like the ADA accommodations act, the ADA act that started in 1990 was based on universal design. Universal design is where you're making everything accessible. And that's pretty much what this is. Not that our children have disabilities, some do, some don't. But if you offer them the same information multiple ways, then they're able to pick up how they learn the best. So if you have hands-on things and you have I'm going back to graduate school and everything's project based. So project based. If you have a lecture, if you have notes like what they call guided notes, where it's like you have guided notes where you lecture or you teach something, or there's a teaching from the video. So that's visual. So it's like if you're offering the same information multiple ways, then they are able to catch it however they best learn it. And some things are just taught best hands-on, but you find multiple ways with the same information. Is that always easy? No, but it takes thought, it takes work. So we want our stuff to be accessible, and that's for the good of everybody. That's just not if our children have disabilities. It helps everybody. I'm like, even all the way up to college, you offer it. If you have a lecture, have the words on the screen. One of my kids definitely learned how to read with those words on those screens. You better watch out for that because you never know what those words are. But that is one very, very important thing. I love universal design. I love it. Oh, let me find. What should I do if I have multiple kids with completely different learning styles? And this is totally a thing. But like I said, go back to universal design and offering the same information multiple ways, and then they all at least able to gravitate and learn. And I mean, so let's say you're doing math, having manipulatives for one kid, having the lecture for another kid, maybe having a video that goes over the principle for having that information offered multiple ways gives them all a chance to learn. And don't discount if it's not their learning style. Even if it's not their learning style, they can still find that useful to reinforce their learning style. So you want to go through, you don't ever want to stick to just one thing. You want to offer that information multiple ways. If you don't get anything else, get that. Okay, so how can I adapt my teaching style if it doesn't match go back multiple ways? Start small. If they're a visual learner, add the visual learning stuff, even though you're maybe a verbal teacher, if you're doing multiple ways. I think our theme tonight is universal design. In fact, I might come back next week and talk about just that a little bit more, because this is such a great subject. I mean, and it really is. I've read some books, but those of you who know me well know I work at a university now. I love universal design. I'm telling you, it is a busy day on my street. It doesn't always happen like that. Now I've got a lawnmower riding by with a cart and children in it. I will not put them on video. I don't know them, but someone is taking them for a ride. And I mean, seriously, he's in a lawnmower only in my city. I had one guy one time drive by with a lawnmower with a bucket on the end, and he had his groceries in the bucket. No lie. And then I've had another man drive up into my yard and honk the horn for me to come out so that he could ask me if something was for sale. I'm like, interesting city. And it is not in the country, people. I do not live in the country. Anyway, so let's see. How do I blend learning styles with my curriculum choice? That happens too. Supplement. If it's a text-heavy program, add the extras. I have had to do this before. I had a child that's very visual. I thought this was going to be, no, she's very like visual videos. I thought I was doing great to buy a book set that was really colorful. I thought she was going to love it. It was on latitude and geography and longitude and all that kind of stuff. No, she would look at me like I was crazy, absolutely crazy. And I learned really quick that everything we covered in there, I had to find YouTube videos to go along with it. Everything. It was one of the longest years of my life because I was determined to use that curriculum. It was a mistake. Should not have done it at all. This was a good one. What are some low stress ways to experiment with a different teaching method to see what works best? Try rotating formats. You can use the same material, like if you have a book, but one day you could add a game, another a video, another a discussion, another one. I'm not even looking at y'all. Sorry, guys. I'm like, I like my answer. You can also ask your child how they prefer to learn. I mean, build awareness. You want them to move into being self-learners. You want them to end up becoming independent. You can have a conversation with your child and ask them what they think. Does that mean you throw out the teaching if they want to not do something? No. You're still the parent, but curriculum's a tool, and use it as a tool and not your boss, because it's not your boss. My child seems resistant to everything. Could that mean I haven't found the right teaching yet? That's possible. Resistance can also be signal burnout, overwhelm, or a need for emotional support. If your child was in the public school, if they have learning disabilities, if there has been trauma in your house, emotional upheaval, take that into consideration too. I'm going to put this down for a minute because this is serious. You want to meet their needs first. We're raising happy, healthy children. If there are other things going on, if you've left the public school system because of maybe their disabilities are not being met, or maybe bullying, anxiety, these are the things I talk with parents weekly. You have to meet their emotional needs first before they're not going to be resistant. That's honestly, I'm a high supporter of therapy. We can't always do things alone. You need to find a therapist, even if it's something as simple. I mean, if you think there's a problem, find someone to help. We're not made to walk this journey alone. We're not made to walk this journey alone. We need a team, whether it's me, whether it's other people in your area, whether it's veteran homeschoolers, find someone to talk to. Number two, if there is an untreated diagnosis, you need to dive into that and make sure you have the correct diagnosis. You can't move forward if you don't know how to teach them and if you don't know what's going on. So those are two things. If you're dealing with resistance, if you're dealing with burnout, if you're dealing divorce, trauma, death of a parent, death of a grandparent, death of a sibling, if you're dealing with any kind of upheaval, you've got to talk to a therapist, and you've got to make sure that there's no underlying diagnosis. If you work on those two things, and that's not a quick fix. It won't be a quick fix. You have to look at the long-term picture. The long-term picture is having a healthy, happy, well-adjusted adult who is contributing to society, contributing to their family. They're moving forward. They're happy. That is what you have to do. That is more important than ticking all your boxes. Now, yes, some states have rules. Alabama's very, very lenient, but other states are not. You may have to, but you're going to have to get creative. Another thing is that's usually, deschooling, taking a step back. Remember, like I've said before, deschooling is not unschooling. Not the same thing. Unschooling is a teaching method, beautiful method. Some people call it child-led learning, family-led learning, family-based learning. I've heard it called several things. Unschooling is probably the oldest, biggest term, but a lot of people will confuse that with deschooling. They can be similar, but they're not the same. One is an approach that they're moving through permanently. Deschooling is a transition period. You can deschool and then unschool. You can deschool and then classical school. But that answer, that's very important. And I want you to, if you're having the person who, if you need to talk more, let me know. Let's see. How do executive functioning skills and learning styles interact? And should I be focusing on both? Definitely. Executive functioning skills are a very big buzzword now and has a lot to do with organization, memory, focus, and affects how we manage tasks. ADHD, it's a huge, huge issue because your executive functioning skills do not work correctly. Can you learn how? Definitely. Now, their process may look different than anybody. I have ADHD. I was diagnosed I've always had it, but I was diagnosed, 2000 as an adult. It was fabulous to finally have a name to a thing. I really think executive functioning skills are going to end up having a diagnosis all its own. It may already have that. ADHD and autism are considered both on the spectrum, but I wonder if executive functioning disorder is going to become a thing all on its own and be called on the spectrum. But it's fascinating, and maybe we'll talk more about that when we talk about universal design, because I really want to come back and talk about that and how it can apply to teaching. That was all my questions. I think I've got them all. Again, if you've got stuff going on and your child's burnout and having resistant, touch base with me. We can brainstorm some things, or if nothing else, I can encourage you, because you're important to the health of your homeschool. You are so important. And if they're dealing with trauma, then you've got trauma too, and you both have got to work through it. And I would love to help because I do consider you mine. You know how I feel about my mamas. I hope I helped a little bit. I will put some of the links I talked about, like with the quiz and all, in this thing. I will also put the links for the books that I talked about last week, how they learn. If I have another one, I'll put that in there. If any of these sparked any more questions, text them below. Or not text them, post them. You know what I mean. And I'll try to grab them at the beginning of next week. Thank you for always being so kind and joining in my vacation. And I hope that you're having a great weekend. Remember, if you're local to me, July 18th, we have an expo. I'll be speaking on high school. Erin's going to be talking about homeschooling 101. We have two surprises speakers coming that we're working out details before I actually say those, but we hope that you'll come and join us and see what all our area has to offer. And that's all I can think of. Have a great, great weekend. I can't wait to see y'all next week. Bye, guys.